The brain was not designed to make you happy, it was designed to keep you alive. That distinction is crucial when understanding why so many people wait for motivation before taking action toward their dreams. At the core of motivation is a neurochemical called dopamine. Contrary to popular belief, dopamine isn't just released when you achieve something. In fact, the largest surges of dopamine occur before the reward, during the pursuit phase. That's what makes it so powerful. Dopamine is the neurochemical currency of pursuit, not pleasure. When you're chasing a dream, your dopamine system is either your greatest ally or your biggest obstacle. If you only get dopamine from results, getting the job, launching the company, crossing the finish line, you'll experience long gaps of low motivation. That's because real dreams take time, and the dopamine spikes will be infrequent and unpredictable. But if you learn how to attach dopamine to the effort itself, making the call, showing up to practice, refining your skill, you rewire your brain to crave the process. This is known in neuroscience as reward prediction error, and it determines how your brain evaluates whether an experience is worth repeating. Your striatum and prefrontal cortex are constantly working to evaluate cost versus reward. If you teach your brain that effort equals dopamine, those areas light up during the work itself, not just when you win. That's a fundamental shift. It moves you out of the passive consumption model, where you're addicted to likes, wins, and validation, and into an active generation model, where progress itself becomes self-reinforcing. Motivation becomes less about external stimulation and more about internal neurochemical design. You're training your system to pursue regardless of how you feel. This kind of intrinsic motivation is teachable, but it takes deliberate behavioral conditioning. Dreams are fundamentally internal constructs. They emerge from a complex mix of your memory, values, fears, and aspirations, all of which are uniquely encoded in your neural circuitry. No one else has lived your exact combination of experiences. This means no one else can fully access the emotional weight or cognitive blueprint of your dream. While humans are evolutionarily wired for social connection and support through structures like mirror neurons and oxytocin release, dreams don't operate within those systems. They're not shared instincts or communal tasks. They are individual neurobiological imperatives. When someone tells you they believe in your dream, what they're actually responding to is the narrative you present, not the internal architecture that built it. Your own brain links that dream to specific neural patterns in the hippocampus and limbic system that no one else can perceive. Your motivations are mapped through a web of associations, traumas, hopes, and goals that are non-transferable. Even your most supportive friend or mentor cannot fight for your dream with the same level of neurochemical engagement because their reward system isn't calibrated to it. They lack the personal stakes. They don't experience the same dopaminergic anticipation, nor the cortisol spikes when failure looms. This is why the pursuit of dreams often feels lonely, because biologically it is. The only person capable of sustaining the effort required for dream pursuit is the person whose nervous system is directly affected by that pursuit. It's a mistake to expect others to hold that responsibility. It's not a failure of support or loyalty. It's simply the neurobiology of agency. Your dream is a pattern in your brain. The action it requires must be initiated by the system that holds the deepest neural investment. Yours. When you engage in the pursuit of a dream, you inevitably encounter stress, rejection, uncertainty, setbacks. From a biological perspective, stress isn't inherently negative. In fact, it plays a crucial role in strengthening neural circuits associated with resilience and performance. The key lies in how the brain interprets the stressor. When you face difficulty voluntarily, choosing to step into pressure rather than avoid it, you activate pathways in the prefrontal cortex and the limbic system that regulate threat detection and emotional regulation. Over time, this intentional exposure recalibrates your brain's stress threshold. The anterior cingulate cortex plays a pivotal role in monitoring conflict and signaling the need for increased attention and control. Repeated exposure to challenges while maintaining goal, Directed behavior strengthens this area. Simultaneously, the amygdala, which handles fear and emotional intensity, becomes less reactive to familiar stressors. This interaction is part of a larger loop that allows stress to become a feedback mechanism for growth rather than a shutdown trigger. The brain learns that discomfort is not a danger signal, but a signal for adaptation. Cortisol and adrenaline, two major stress hormones, are not just byproducts of challenge, they're performance enhancers when managed well. When cortisol levels rise in response to a self-chosen goal, they facilitate sharper focus, better memory consolidation, and faster reaction times. The crucial distinction is whether the stress is perceived as threat or challenge. Threat suppresses action. Challenge stimulates it. That interpretation is shaped by experience and belief systems, which are trainable. Every time you push through a hard workout, a cold exposure, a rejection letter, or a failed pitch, and choose to return, you are reinforcing a neurological loop that links difficulty with growth. Your system adapts, and what once triggered avoidance now becomes a signal to engage. This is resilience not as a motivational concept, but as a measurable, trainable circuit. People often misunderstand how change happens. They wait for emotion, an internal wave of inspiration, to trigger action. But the science shows it's the other way around. Consistent behavior reshapes the brain through a process known as experience-dependent plasticity. This means your neural circuits change in response to repeated activity, not intention. Dreams are not realized by thinking more about them, but by engaging in a structured sequence of behaviors regardless of mood. Your brain's neuroplastic potential doesn't favor emotion, it favors repetition. The basal ganglia, a set of deep brain structures, play a critical role in habit formation and behavioral automation. When you repeat a task regularly, writing, practicing, studying, it begins to require less cognitive effort and fewer decision-making resources. The behavior moves from the prefrontal cortex executive planning to the basal ganglia habit loop. That shift is crucial because it frees up attention and reduces the friction associated with starting. Emotional motivation, on the other hand, is unreliable. It fluctuates with sleep, diet, social interactions, and even weather. Relying on it creates inconsistency, and inconsistency disrupts the neural encoding required for long-term change. Dopaminergic firing patterns are also shaped by predictability and follow-through. When you say you'll do something and do it, your brain records that as a credible signal. When you say you'll do something and don't, your dopamine system learns to distrust your internal voice. Over time, this affects your sense of agency and drive. The solution is protocol. Define a schedule, break down actions, and stick to it. Whether or not you feel like doing it becomes irrelevant. What matters is sending consistent input to the nervous system. In this framework, emotion becomes a byproduct of action. Motivation follows movement, not the other way around. The dream starts to feel possible not because of a surge of belief, but because the brain has received sufficient evidence to treat it as real. Agency, the belief that your actions can influence outcomes, is not just a psychological mindset. It's a neurochemical switch. When you perceive yourself as the primary driver of your life, specific brain circuits activate, including regions of the anterior cingulate cortex, ventromedial prefrontal cortex, and basal ganglia. These areas are responsible for evaluating decisions, monitoring outcomes, and adjusting future behavior. When agency is high, these regions operate with greater efficiency, leading to improved focus, emotional regulation, and persistence under pressure. One of the most important chemicals involved in agency is norepinephrine. It enhances alertness, prioritizes task-relevant information, and improves signal-to-noise ratio in your perception, but its release is context-dependent. If you believe your effort matters, if there's a contingency between what you do and what happens, norepinephrine levels rise to meet the demand. If you believe the outcome is outside your control, those levels drop, attention drifts, and the system enters a passive state. This is what learned helplessness looks like on a neurochemical level. Agency also reinforces self-directed neuroplasticity. When you act on your own volition, the brain enters a more plastic, adaptable state. This enhances the strength of the connections being formed. Simply put, the circuits you build through self-chosen effort become more durable than those built through compliance or external pressure. Your dream, then, becomes not just an aspiration but a training ground for your nervous system. When you take action, especially in uncertain conditions, you are signaling to your brain that you're in control. That signal influences everything from cortisol regulation to immune function to long-term emotional stability. It's not abstract, it's biochemical. The more you assert agency, the more robust your internal systems become. Passive waiting erodes those systems. Active pursuit strengthens them.